Hi again. Okay, so here's an update to that last video I took on this motherboard here. It's a Socket 775 motherboard, and it has a Pentium 4 3 gig in it. And it originally came with 512 megabytes of RAM. Both were 256 sticks, some Corsair sticks. I forget what they were, but they're like Corsair gaming sticks. Old ones though. Again, they only had 512 megabytes on them total. And this would have been running like Windows XP or something like that. Anyhow, when it was given to me, it was inside a server case, and the person told me they weren't sure what was wrong with it. I had opened up the back side of it and yanked out two cards just to get an idea of what the cards were, because I was curious of what they were, and hadn't really gotten fully into it, the entire case yet. So this here is the motherboard outside of the case. If you didn't see the first video, you might want to check that one out to see what it looked like in its original state. Has an NVIDIA graphics card here. I don't remember what it is. An Asus ribbon. I mean, it gives you an idea. It gives you an idea of how old what we're dealing with here. But my intention is to upgrade the RAM to its maximum capacity. I think is 16 gigs. And I'm going to put a Core 2 Duo 3 gig in it, which is, from my understanding, will max out the motherboard. They told me that they didn't know what was wrong with it, and when I opened up the case, many of the internals were disconnected, like the SATA drives and things like that. But I believe that it works, and I'm going to do some testing as is, because even if that doesn't work, I can always get another motherboard just like it and use those parts in that one. But I'm fairly certain that this works, because I couldn't see any broken capacitors or bulbed capacitors or anything that indicates, board failure. Although that doesn't necessarily mean that the board, was having some issues, or maybe maybe if anything, it could have been that their operating system was having troubles and not the motherboard. It did have a Windows XP on the drive. It was a SATA drive, not even an SSD. So really, they could have been having trouble with the hard drive and not necessarily the motherboard. So my plan was to take this old motherboard and do like a retro build with it, upgrade it as much as possible, perhaps stick with this graphics card, maybe not. I might put a different one in. I mean, this one's kind of old. It actually has a composite out on it. So I might upgrade that graphics card to something a little bit newer. And I'm planning on sticking it inside this case here. I blacked out the back panel. It was originally silver. And I tried to do just Sharpie, and I tested the Sharpie on the back. You can kind of sort of see it there, but it wasn't staying. It wasn't going to work, so I used a paint marker, because I didn't have any spray paint. And in order to get it to stick, I really had to kind of dab on it, and they really couldn't just kind of color with the marker. And I mean, there's even a few spots where I missed that I honestly don't care that much about, because it's going to be in the back of it anyhow. But I thought it would kind of it would look nicer in the back of the panel of this machine, of this case, blacked out as opposed to silver. So my intention here is to take that motherboard and put it into this case and do, something that, other people have done it as well, but they basically, instead of doing a sleeper machine, it's like a sleeper in reverse, where you take nicer stuff on, take an older motherboard, older internal components, and make them look newer by adding newer hardware on the outside, like a nicer case, maybe a nicer power supply or RGB or whatever. And for me, I got a case here that's, honestly, I don't like these cases that much with these power supply basements, because it puts you in a position where if you don't have the right length of power supply, you're going to get extension cables or, whatever. Also, if there's a hard drive chassis down here, you have to be careful of how much power supply you stick in, because you want to have room for your cables or in the power supply, of course. And this one happens to have one right about here or so, and it's riveted in. You can't take it out with with screws, and I don't want to drill them out. So I had to make sure I got the right size power supply, and I mean, it's really kind of a pain in the butt. I don't like these. Not a fan. If they were removable or something, I don't know. And I get the idea. I understand the purpose, but I don't like it that much. Anyhow, this budget case here has 3 green fans in the front and a green fan in the back. And I'm going to be putting some fans up here, some Corsair fans, and another one might be Rocket Fish or something. But there's 2 reds and 1 blue. And I'll might put like a blue LED strip in here or something, maybe. Just to do like the RGB thing. And these here are oh yeah, Rosewell. This one's blue, red Corsair, and these will be in the back, on the top rather, of that case. Trying to make this thing look all, pretty and stuff. So that's the update for now. I'll post more as this build comes along. Thanks for watching. Alright, so here's a quick update. I have moved that motherboard out of the old case. I installed a different heatsink, and this one lights up blue a little bit. This is an Asus GTX 550 Ti. Which isn't like, it's not great. It's only got like 1 gig RAM. But again, this is going to be a reverse sleeper build. Putting older hardware into, a newer case. I do have some fans that will populate the top area here as well. But I had to pull them out to get this in. And this is an Antec. This is an Antec cooler. It's only got like I think it's a 90mm fan on it, I think. But it's basically AMD ready with a bracket here for Intel. The issue is that in order to change the CPU out, you have to take off the entire bracket, all of this, to get to the CPU. It's kind of a pain in the butt. I thought this supported 8 gigs RAM. Turns out it's a maximum of 2. So the CPU that's in it isn't really worth being in here. I also, additionally, I misread the specifications for this motherboard, and the max CPU that I would want to put in here is a Core 2 Duo E6700. What's in here now is an E7600, and while it does work, like I can turn the computer on, and the motherboard recognizes that it's a 3 gig Core 2 Duo 7600, but I do get an issue like during boot up where it says, honestly I can't remember the name of the error now, but essentially what it needs would be a BIOS update. But I looked online and I couldn't find a BIOS update for this motherboard that seemed to be newer than what's already on here. And this CPU that's in here now is not on the supported list. So it works, but not really. So I'm going to end up pulling that one out. Unfortunately, it's going to be a bit of a downgrade, but I do have an old Pentium D, 2.8 gig Pentium D that I can put in here, which would be plenty sufficient for the games that I instant installing on this anyhow. We're talking like old games, you get a 1 gig VRAM for example, anyhow. And the idea here was to actually have an old school gaming system for like Duke Nukem or let's see, Doom, like the original Doom, or I don't know, just basically old games that this system will crush and run, flawlessly at like highest settings for those particular old games. I might try doing like a GOG box out of it, like, just to install as many GOG games that I have, because in here I do have quite a bit of storage available, and I'm also actually using one of them. There's a 60 gig 7200 PATA in there. Maybe it's a 5400. I don't remember anymore. But these are 7200s. Then you get the PATA, and this will be the boot drive here. I still have to redo all of the cabling, because it took me a bit to like access all of this. So yeah, but that's where we are now. I have to essentially downgrade the CPU, but again, it'll be plenty fast enough for what I'm going to have installed on here anyways. Even this GPU is sort of overkill, the 550 Ti, for the games that I imagine most of the games that are going to get installed on here don't need more than a 32 to a 64, maybe 128 megabyte graphics card, so that'll be plenty fast enough as well without running out of any VRAM. I think the most intense game that might go on here that could potentially push this GPU to the max, and possibly the CPU as well, is Oblivion, especially if it was modded a bit. Yeah, that would definitely, put this machine to work. But other than that, primarily my intent is to install older games, as mentioned, but have it looking all blinged out with colorful fans and stuff like that. And what I've got going on here is 3 greens: red, blue, green, and I have a GPU cooler here that'll be blue, and I might put a red strip in here too, just to kind of balance it all out a bit. But yeah, it'll look nice. It's just not going to perform all that great, as in comparison to like much newer hardware. But for the day, back in the day, this would have been a killer system. Anyways, that's it for now. Thanks for watching, and if you like these videos, give them a thumbs up, please. If you don't, you know what to do. And obviously, feel free to comment. Are you doing any old builds? Do you have any old school hardware lying around you might do a build with? I don't know. Let me know. Thanks for watching.